Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome back.
Welcome back. Nice to see you, Sarah.
You two guys. Andrew, we finally meet.
How are you doing? Yes, we had
Good,
a little
thank you.
chat beforehand, but nice to meet, I guess, in the podcasting world, officially.
Yeah. It's been well overdue.
Yeah, well overdue. I often speak about Andrew on the podcast. I'm going to formally introduce this episode. As you can see, our guest today is Dr. Andrew Chappell, who I have the great privilege of also calling my partner in crime and just all-round business partner, friend, and of course, my other half. So, Andrew, I think, from our listeners' perspective, I think you probably have a lot to say about your own introduction. But I'd like to say, obviously, from a fitness and bodybuilding perspective, Andrew is one of the leading researchers in the UK for studying natural bodybuilding populations and bodybuilding in general, and has had a huge track record with his own publications, which I'm sure you'll go into as well, and is one of the leading natural pro bodybuilders on the circuit, and of course is in tandem with me in running and coaching at Pro Prep Coaching as well. That's a little bit about my introduction for Andrew. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I think you've done a great job there. Thank you very much.
Nice summary there.
I'm more used to the self-deprecation rather than talking myself up. But oh gosh, where to start? So I'm a Bachelor of Science in Sports Science. I'm a Master's in Human Nutrition, and I have a PhD in Human Nutrition. I'm a researcher, as Stephanie says, as well, and I've got lots of publications from topics looking at the gut microbiota to topics such as creatine, caffeine, fish oils, and more recently looking at bodybuilding populations and looking at what they do nutritionally. And I recently published a paper it's out this month in the Journal of Human Kinetics, looking at a case study of a series of 4 different natural bodybuilders getting ready for competition, looking at both the psychological but also the physiological effects that sort of competition preparation has on competitors. Also coach lots of bodybuilders as well, judge and compete. So I guess that's me. I think I've spoken enough, and I'll hand it over to you girls now. You can quiz me and hopefully there's some value to this podcast.
It's always one of the, when you introduce yourself, it's like a moment of reflection. Blimey, I do know quite a lot. And we had Fiona on the last one, and she was talking about you, Andrew, and saying how much the level of detail you go into in the calls and the things that come up, she can get a really good, honest opinion, but also you've got the education behind it, which no doubt Steff feels the same, offers an extra level of coaching for people in tuition as well, to actually understand, when you go into a prep, I don't think you quite realise the physiological effects that do occur. Mm-hmm. It can be quite scary, 100%.
And I think I can't think of anyone really better to talk about this topic today, which is the physiological effects for females during contest prep. And so there's so much I think we can dive into on this one. And I suppose some of those things will overlap into other podcasts that we've done. Yeah. But yeah, it is incredible to be able to work even alongside Andrew in kind of a business capacity, because of his depth of knowledge, and coming at that from an evidence-based perspective can be really, really helpful in rationalizing why certain things are happening at certain points through the contest prep. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, probably a good place to start would be, we've sort of touched on it before, Steff, where a potential client comes on board and says to you, I really want to get into bodybuilding, I want to start a prep. Is there certain things that you would look at and go, actually, you're maybe not ready to go into a prep, let's look at a different phase first? Or do you take anyone on for a prep? Is there certain things that you sort of look at, and is there any red flags?
I know it's a great question. It's a really, really good one. Myself, and I'm sure other coaches do the same, and I'm sure you do the same as well. Everyone, I'm sure, has got a screening process. Yeah. And the first sort of things that you're doing is you're trying to work out, well, what are people's goals? Can I work with this person? Because if the personalities are going to clash, then it's never going to work. And do you know what? Women are better than men. They generally are, to gel with and to get along with. Guys have got a bigger ego and don't know that they need the help. But that's a different point there, I would say. So women are easier to work with. But it's trying to work out, okay, well, what's going on in someone's life? What's their background, their experience? So if they've played a lot of sport, then they're used to winning, they're used to a competitive process, they're used to applying themselves. If they've got like a military background, that's great. They're used to following something rigidly from there. But if someone's like, okay, I want to prep, but I'm going on holiday in 6 weeks' time from here, and then I've got a hen do to go on, and then I've got a wedding after that, and I've got 3 kids to look after, but also run the netball club on the side and stuff. You're like, whoa. I don't think you realise what goes on with all this from here. So those are the initial things that I suppose for anyone who's doing a screening is going to look into. And then I suppose after that, it's, do you know what happens with prep? Do you know what's involved? And I mean, you've got to strike the balance between being a coach and then getting clients on board as well, because you don't want to scare anyone away if it's a big goal they want to do. But some candor is probably useful as well at the same time. So, okay, well, I always tell people, rather than try to scare them off, like, look, this is going to be a challenge, but it's a great challenge. And if you really apply yourself, you'll get a lot out of this. But don't think for a second it's not going to be a challenge, right? So I guess those are things. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's not till you do a prep you really understand it anyway. You can, I mean, coaches can tell you can try and understand, but it's not till you get to the depths of a prep you think, Christ, this is what people are talking about.
Yeah, it's like unknown territory, isn't it? It's like you've never been there before, so that's where coach comes in and helps you manage it.
Yeah, and like you said, asking those questions about this is happening, is there a reason? Then if, you know, you've got the education of a coach behind that to say, maybe it's this that's happening, we can look at this to improve it, or something you've got to ride out, or whatever it may be. There's so many things that happen that you have actually just got to go, okay, that's part of a prep.
Yeah, you're right. Do you know what, actually, I was just reflecting there. I think actually a lot of people that are coming and asking for prep services, they don't actually 100% always know what's going to happen and what's involved, and it's only really the intuitive competitor that will ask me the question, say, is it true that my period will disappear? Am I going to suffer from low moods? Am I going to get more injuries? Is it lethargy that I'm going to have? And that's someone that's maybe done a bit more research beforehand, and that's someone that I guess I personally want to work a little bit more with it already, because they're a bit more prepared coming into it from there, because some people can be, like I say, a bit bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, yeah, let's do a prep. I'm like, well, do you know what's really going to be happening? And you can never tell someone until they're involved. You're right.
Literally. I mean, is there certain things that so if you had that person that has 3 kids, runs a netball club's got holidays coming up, stuff like that, would you delve into, this is what can happen, these are the effects that can happen later on in a prep? Or would you say, you know, let's start with some smaller goals? Is there certain ways you tackle it as coaches?
I think the latter is what I mean, that's if I'm going to take the person on. Because I deal with contest prep clients for bodybuilding, and you need to be in a certain place to do that. I also have transformation clients and stuff like that. And you still want to say, like, look, contest prep, it's not for you. If they agree with me and they want to change the goal, that's fine. If they don't agree with me, they'll find someone else. I'm sure. But I think it's a case of, you've got to change the goal and say, like, look, this is realistic. And I can give you an example of, I spoke to a guy yesterday and he was telling me, look, I want to achieve this, this, and this, and this. It's like I want a 200 kilo deadlift. I want a 100 kilo bench press for 8, and I want to squat 140. And he tells me, right, look, I've not been to the gym for 5 weeks. I'm working on this sales deal at the moment that I'm really trying to close. I'm probably going to be going on until the end of the month. And I've just got to be like, look, man, I can help you with that goal, and I'm positive I can get you towards there. But if you're telling me that you're going to have half an hour a night to do some push-ups and sit-ups in your bedroom before you get to bed, then maybe at this point it's not the right goal for you. And I guess that brings it back to exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah. It's like that realistic goal.
100%.
It's got to be a realistic goal. And one of the questions we always ask in sort of consultations, do you foresee there being any major stumbling blocks or challenges in the way from you achieving that goal? And that's exactly one right there. He's got the goal, wants to get it, but he's got this giant thing in the way right now that's stopping him from getting there. Yeah, when we're talking about kind of what's going on cognitively before you jump into the prep, all of these things matter. And it's kind of, it's the same as like if you, I know this is a bit crass, but right, see if you're a female and you were considering, I don't know, going and getting a boob job.
Yep.
You'd probably do your research to know what's involved in that, because it's a pretty big thing you're about to put your body through. It's an invasive surgery. It's a really huge thing. I don't know many people who would go away and get a boob job just like by going, I just want to do that tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's something you've got to go away and work out and research, find your surgeon, work it all out. It's kind of, although very different, the same principle. You need to understand what you're about to get yourself into. before you commit to this really, well, as we both know, and all of us know, can really, really take over your life for a period of time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. For the listeners, say there's someone that's looking at going into a prep and they've got maybe a background of medical conditions or mental health, things like that. Is there certain things that you would go, actually, you know, this is maybe out of our realm before you go into a prep? Or is it, I know it's going to be individual to a certain degree, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I mean, I've got a list written down here of different topics I'm going to bring up about physiological concerns and things that change along the way as we get into this. But
awesome.
Immediately, things that flag up: previous history of eating disorder.
Yeah.
I mean, I could work with you, but I'm not gonna, because I've not got the skills and the training to work with that. And there's, to be frank, there's a lot of people out there that want to do contest prep, bodybuilding, bikini competing, figure class, etc., that are going to be easier for me to work with, that I've got the skills to work with, that I can provide a service for, that are not going to give me, as, to be frank, as many headaches. Because I can make things worse. I don't need it. And are they prepared to do it? So that's a major one already.
Yeah, I mean,
that's probably the most obvious one.
Yeah, I knew Andrew was going to bring that one up first, because there is, we've spoken about this before on the podcast, Sarah, where some people will go into a prep with the why, well, with the reasons for doing it to maybe mask something else that's going on. I do tend to find that the potential people who come in from an eating disorder point of view is trying to find another kind of almost control routine way of dealing with that eating disorder. And there's a lot of unpicking mentally. We're not the coaches to do that. You know, that's a counsellor or some other intervention job there.
There's people out there that will coach you. They specialise in that.
They're good at it.
Then they're good at it, but that's not, there aren't my skills. And I'm not working on that. In terms of other sort of medical issues, etc., going on there, I mean, a lot of people are coming to you and they're carrying like a little injury or a niggle here and there. That's a little bit different. There's always workarounds. That from a female perspective, you see people who are maybe perimenopausal or are menopausal. You've got people who have got polycystic ovaries or endometriosis. Now, you can work with people like that. That's not a problem, but you also have to be understanding that it's maybe not going to be as easy for that person to get in shape, and you've got to be confident in yourself with your abilities of a coach to be able to work with someone like that and know your limitations from there. But and be honest, it will be harder than someone that doesn't have those conditions. That's just the reality of it. But
polycystic ovaries, is that harder to lose weight, or is there other things that?
Well, do you know what? I'm not expert enough, but from my understanding,
we've got a couple of clients with PCOS.
Sometimes what can happen with something like polycystic ovaries is you can end up producing excess testosterone, which can actually, as you imagine, make you even better.
Great for bodybuilding. Great for bodybuilding.
Yeah, it really is. But you know that it's degrees.
There is degrees.
Because there's not, that doesn't necessarily mean if you've got that's what's going to happen for you. You might have it manifest in another way. I've known a female who's got a benign tumour on one of her adrenal glands, and she produces huge amounts of testosterone.
Oh, really?
Like, she's extremely muscular to the point at which she would probably have to use some sort of testosterone suppression if she was to take part in, female athletics, for example, from there, to get it below a certain amount. So yeah, there are certain things that you're going to be looking at
spectrum there,
whereby you go like, can I work with this person? Have I got the skills? Can I understand this enough? Is it going to be too much of an issue? Are they going to be able to manage it? Because no one knows their body better than they and their consultant. And then there are things that you're going to just stay well clear of, and you're just going to have to say, probably can't work with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, what about thyroid problems? Is that something that would be?
Well, I've actually got clients who've got thyroid issues.
It's common. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
And the thing about a thyroid problem is, I mean, if they're taking part in natural bodybuilding, it should specify that they need to get a therapeutic use exemption. So their doctor gives them that, because thyroid regulates your ability to metabolize energy, so fat, carbohydrates, proteins. So they've got if you started taking a lot of that beyond what you physiologically need, but then at the end of the day, again, it's a case of, well, that's potentially cheating, isn't it? So that's why you need the TUE. But no, if you're taking thyroid, then I've got clients, they go to see their doctor, the doctor checks their levels, They say that their thyroid levels are within the normal healthy range, so they adjust the medication to go from there. I've had one client, in fact, who when I started working with her, that we managed to reduce the amount of thyroid medication she was having to take because the diet was significantly healthier than what she was consuming before. So that was a real plus. Again, though, is this person likely to perform as well when it comes to a weight loss regime as someone else? No, they've got that little bit of a disadvantage, but they never complain to me about it. They know what they've got, and we work together to try to get them towards their goal. And this person's sent me the latest check-in photos today. Do you know what? They look good. They look really good.
I guess all you can do as coaches is be honest to say, you know, it might be that as we go into a prep, we hit stumbling blocks or things might come up, and it might be that we need some extra help, you know, pop to your GP or whatever. It's very person dependent, isn't it?
100%.
Individual.
And there is those conversations that, you know, there's health checks to begin with. We see how the diet is, the body responds to the diet. There's health checks further on. You know, there's those kind of processes we go through with somebody that may require that, but everyone's very different, of course.
Yeah, because Steff, we've just sprung to my mind, we spoke about medication before as well, didn't we? Also, people come into you, they need to disclose everything, because you might be on something that's managing like a mental health medication that you might not think to mention, but actually that could be leading to potential complexities to going into a prep. Well,
common ones, I'm fairly certain certain SSRIs, so antidepressants. Some of these drugs will increase your appetite, some of them will suppress your appetite. Some of them will give you irritability, skin conditions,
inflammation,
will make you hold water. So yeah, you have to disclose it. And then so that if you're looking at something from the lenses of as a coach and you're wondering, why does that person keep having binge eating episodes, or why is their skin not particularly well, or why are they not losing as much weight or performing as well, then unless you've got that piece of the puzzle, then you can sort of get a clearer picture of what's going on.
And then from a sort of a female perspective, that's SSRIs. If we know if a female is taking a certain hormone for, say, managing their period, for menarche, etc., we need to know that as well.
Yeah.
So are they on the Mirena? Are they taking a mini pill? Are they taking a combined pill? What sort of contraceptions are they using, so that we know how to manage the hormonal fluctuations that might come from that as well. So yeah, it's absolutely, I mean, there's all of these things. It's very hard. I've heard people sort of say, oh, are you on that pill? That means this. And that's a bit, you can't kind of pigeonhole it into one box, because it's very different for everyone. What one person experiences on a Mirena, for example, Mirena coil, another person might not. And same with the argument with SSRIs, everyone's very different. So you've got to kind of understand what these things do physiologically inside the body, and then see what's going on, because not everyone will be the same. It's very cautious around that kind of jargon about, oh, that means this, not always.
I think if there's a theme that you can take from this opening gambit, the thing you take from it is that you can't necessarily do a paid by numbers approach to coaching, that everyone is an individual. There's lots of nuance there. And one of my favorite scientists, Sapolsky, says that what we often do in science is we always take information, we put them into separate bins, and we think, and very often they're arbitrary lines, these bins that we put the information into. As Steff says, this means this and that means that. But often things can be on continuums, and things are not as clear cut as we often like to make out.
One of our favorite words, nuance.
Lots
of nuance.
Lots of nuance. You get that with experience.
Yeah, you do.
You really do.
You do. And you start to form patterns as well, though. There are certain things that you start to notice. And although there may be varying degrees, if you are a female who is coming to us and is maybe experiencing different side effects from, say, and again, going back to contraception, a certain contraception, you do have the physician or the instructions in the packet that show the side effects as well. There is actual medical stuff there that you can kind of look at and go, okay, well, have you considered that maybe some of these symptoms you're experiencing are because of this medication? They might not have even made two or two, put two and two together. So there's certain things that we also need to highlight at certain points to get to the root cause if there's any physiological distress potentially.
Yeah, and I mean, even talking about menstrual cycles, I had a conversation today with a new client where we're working on some nutrition stuff, and she was saying that oh, you know, when I'm on my period, my weight doesn't tend to go up that much. And again, it's one of those things where a lot of people say, I always gain weight on my period, but not everyone does.
No,
No, you're right. You're right. Not everyone does.
You know, I've got some clients who can literally fluctuate between 4 and 5 kilos when they're on their period. They're just water full. And then some clients who don't change at all.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, people that are, for the females that do go through a regular menstrual cycle, if you say have that every 4 weeks, you can pretty much diarise, I'm going to be on during this time each month. For coaches, it's like, oh, okay, so during that period, you know, you might need to adjust the way you look at the weigh-ins and then take the data from either side, and you can maybe work with that a little bit easier than some people have completely random menstrual cycles, don't they?
Yeah, we have a menstrual tracker. Yeah. And how we track is, if somebody's really regular, that's great, because they can pretty much go, I'm this weight on the day of my period, through the period I'm this weight, this weight, this weight, this weight, end of period I'm this weight, and a few days after I'm this weight. And you can see that, and that happens kind of monthly. For the people who are irregular, the same system applies, but it's just, we have, you know, some people are, I'm really irregular. I've never had a regular period in my life, even when I've not been on, well, I'm on contraception at the moment, but not been on contraception before. My periods have been like crazy, like never been able to know. So it's just knowing, though, I think regardless of whether they're regular or not, being okay with, if you are that person that you have those fluctuations in weight, your psychological state doesn't go, oh my God, I'm fat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm, you know, this XYZ. It's being rational again about what's happening physiologically to the body. And sometimes that we've had that conversation with clients before, where we've come in and gone, let's take this as clear information. You're on your period. This is what's happening. This is why. Let us do the rationalizing for you, so you can take the emotional brain out of it, you know.
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think if I could just add in here for listeners, if you are contest prepping, I would track the menstrual cycle. Yeah. If you're not doing it, there's lots of apps you can get on your phone, but just it will probably help you quite a bit to understand what's going on. And once you've got the data, you can get the patterns, and then you can start to see, okay, that's what happens. And then if you want to go a step further than that, you can actually start to get yourself a symptoms tracker, and you can start to say, okay, well, what's happening psychologically in the different phases from there. Because then you can understand, okay, these are the times where I'm going to get the cravings around food, for example, or I'm going to be a little bit more highly strung, so you know what's going to happen. And if you really want to, you can maybe think about changing your contraception and having a discussion with your doctor to say, okay, well, maybe if I try something else, I won't feel quite the same way around about that particular time of the month. So just, it would be worth tracking, if you're not doing it.
Just a wee note on that as well. See, if you're a female like me who's on contraception and doesn't have a period, you obviously don't have the actual release of the period itself. So it's very difficult to know, where are you in your months? You still have symptoms. And I think the symptoms you can kind of almost feel yourself. And I think it's being much more intuitive to yourself throughout the month, working out when that high point is in the month, because you still have it. It's just a little bit more intuitive to find it.
Why do people thinking I'm so aggy at the moment? I can't put my finger on it.
Well, that's what happens.
That's exactly
what you see it all the time. You're like, and it amazes me that people are like, how have you not made the link?
How have you not
made that connection? I know it's a cliche, but cliches are cliches because they're very often, there's some truth in them.
Yeah. Andrew, is there anything on your list about sort of hunger signals and what happens in that?
Oh gosh, there's lots of things on my list. I mean, the first, not in terms of hunger signals and stuff, but we can get to that. The big thing that I wanted to say, that for the listeners who are coaches or who aren't coaches, who are females, etc., is that women are not just small men.
Love that.
That's one of the major things you need to understand when you're working with female clients. They're not the same. They're not the same as working with the guys.
I love that analogy. That is so good.
They're genuinely like, I can give a guy a diet to follow, and I know as long as he's following that, he will lose weight every single week. No problem at all. He'll get towards his goal. We might see a little fluctuation in his weight. here and there. That might be because he's stubbed his toe and he's taken anti-inflammatory that day. They will lose weight. It's not a problem. He'll get in shape. It is, and I'm going to say it, it's an easier journey for the guys.
100%.
100%. 100%. You cannot just take your cookie cutter diet that you're having for your guy,
your bro split,
and give it to your girl and expect to get the same results. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Just not the same. So that's the major thing. I mean, and there's obvious differences. So why would you expect them to respond the same? I mean, physiologically hugely different, and largely because of our evolutionary roles in the survival of the species.
Yeah.
Women hold so much more. We hold more fat. We just have more fat.
So, I mean, we've been talking about the reproductive cycle. There's a relationship with body fat and body fat distribution, but also total body water.
Yeah.
You've got a completely different hormonal profile. I mean, we talked about testosterone. It's non-existent in women, really. They're tiny amount, but it's non-existent. So estrogen's your number one muscle building hormone within there. Metabolism is different. There's abundant studies on this that show that the ability to metabolize fat and oxidize fat is higher in women than carbohydrates. So that means that the approach can potentially be different in terms of the diet. And then beyond that, you've got differences in things like skeletal structures are different. So you see exaggerated Q angles around the knee. So that means that knee injuries are going to be much more highly frequent. Narrower shoulders. So the ability to generate force in the upper body is not as high. You see differences in injuries and recoveries because of that. And then we're talking about all this stuff to do with the reproductive cycle, which obviously has an effect and influences what happens with someone's body fat levels day to day, week to week, month to month, because physiologically women are set up to hold more body fat than men. And you can better believe it from an evolutionary perspective. That also means that they're better set up to try and retain that body fat better in guys and give it up. And that ties in probably really to the hunger signals. Now, I don't have data on this, and I've not looked into the differences between male and female hunger signals, etc. But I just wouldn't be surprised if the signals are stronger from a female to a male for the desire to go and eat to stop the body fat levels coming down.
I don't like being here. Go eat, go eat, go eat.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing I just want to say that the social pressures and the social norms are completely different for what a female has to experience compared to a man. So that whole gamut on that there and that bit, it's that the women are not small men, and that's a huge point you've got to realize when you're working with female athletes compared to the male athletes. Because if you can get past the ego issues with guys and get them to listen, they are coachable, then the results you'll get with them will be superb, and it's not a problem. With the girls, you've got to work so much harder, so much more harder.
Yeah,
I think women, I guess you get two ends of the spectrum, but a lot of females that I've come across at shows and different people I've spoken to, there's, I guess, an overarching lack of self-confidence in a lot of bikini competitors or figure competitors, any sort of female competitors, men as well. But a lot of women I meet, you know, Steff and I talk about this all the time, you know, on a show day, and there's girls backstage about to go on and they're looking at everyone else, and suddenly it's like, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be here. And to be able to coach people that are feeling that way about themselves must be really difficult at times, you know, to build that level of trust and honesty, and also to empower them to be able to complete a prep and actually compete in the first place.
Yeah, I think we've touched on this before, Sarah, but a big part of the coaching ethos, particularly for us, is at the heart of it is using this as a challenge for yourself. It's you versus use, really stereotypical, you know, terminology there, but it is that, it's learning about yourself, it's believing you can do this for you, it's a goal bigger than everything else, you know, and it's also about having fun and enjoyment of this. I think we all get so severely caught up in who's placing where and what's what, and we forget that actually this is such a kind of intrinsic, personal, quite spiritual journey for somebody, because you go through all these crazy things we've just discussed here, the fat loss and the ways that makes you feel, and that you're having to build resilience and discipline to not eat or not do other things, or, you know, but yeah, the channeling the confidence is a big thing. And I think with the support of people who get it and want the best for you, you're going to get a lot of that feedback back, if that makes sense, from the person individually.
Yeah, it's not letting that take over, isn't it? Like the control mechanism of what a prep is, you can get so carried away. And I talk from my own experience, like you turn into this absolute raving lunatic. You know, you can become so neurotic that actually your relationships outside of bodybuilding become very deteriorated, and you know, you don't feel like anyone understands you and this type of stuff. That then feeds into, it might be something you want to talk about, Andrew, how stress can affect the actual physique.
Well, it's massive. It's massive. I mean, psychologists, if they're talking about what you're describing, they describe that as tunnel vision.
Yeah,
that's classic. Blinkers on. That's the term they use. So tunnel vision, things outside of that not mattering, and you can imagine how that obviously affects relationships and other aspects of your life because you've got this one goal that you're working towards. I mean, stress is massive. And the major stress hormone is cortisol. And what cortisol does is it's a fight or flight hormone. So if you imagine if you were back in the day a primate running away from a lion who was coming to get you, your body would do a huge dump of cortisol and you'd release a whole lot of glucose, a whole lot of fatty acid, and you'd break down protein tissue as well to fuel your body's muscles so that you can run as fast as you can away from that lion and save your life, yeah? So that's what cortisol is for. But in the 21st century and what you live in, we're often a lot of us are suffering from elevated levels of that fight or flight hormone all the time. You can imagine it's not particularly healthy for you. And in the classic way that gets elevated is in something like stomach ulcers. So people get stress related for that, or people have a stress related heart attack. So these are real world things, and it affects the physique as well. The most notable way that it affects your physique is water. So you hold water, and if you've got elevated cortisol levels for too long, then you'll burn through muscle tissue. Yeah, you really, really will. So it really can affect the physique. One thing that I think I perceive quite a lot is in beginners and first timers when they get ready for their first show or their second season or their third season, very often they're better. And it's not because they've got working with a better coach or anything like that. It's just they've done the show day experience and they're no longer like the rabbit in the headlights and they're not as stressed. And that can have a massive effect just on the way that the physique looks. And then the other respect is the unknown is stressful. Yeah. So if you've got to go to the doctors and you don't know what's wrong with you, then that's really stressful because you're thinking about a million things. And even if you get a bad diagnosis, at least you know what it is.
Yeah, 100%.
And that can make it, because you can rationalize and make a peace with it. If you go to the doctors, you feel awful, they give you some tests and they still don't know, that's even worse than finding out that something that's bad, yeah? So stress massively affects the physique. We can measure this. So this is something that I measured actually in the recent study that I did. So you can measure cortisol. And one thing you see is when people are getting closer and closer to competition, then physiologically, if you take a blood sample of someone, you see cortisol levels tend to be higher than what you'd expect in an average person getting ready or an average athlete in the off season. Everyone's own levels are individual, so you'd compare them to themselves. But you see that, notably in guys, there's something called the testosterone to cortisol ratio. And obviously you want to have a good high test to low cortisol ratio from there. I've never seen it measured in women. I imagine the same as estrogen to cortisol ratio, just like that. So you can measure that. And then you can do psychoanalytic questionnaires. You can do things like state trait anxiety tests. And you can say, okay, well, how anxious is this person in the off season during the contest prep? And then as get closer to the contest, and you can measure that, psychoactives, and the stress levels go up. They go up, and that's to do with lower body fat levels, the tunnel vision, the lower calories, the high stress from the workouts, the fatigue that all goes alongside it, and you can measure it. It is individual though, because I can give you this one other anecdote. I measured all those things, and the 4 people that we measured, 3 guys, 1 girl. And one of the guys, when we did the psychoactive questionnaires with him, the psychometric, his stress levels were low all the time, right? Now, knowing the guy, he's super laid back. He's almost like, I was like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me about him. So So again, it's individual, but yeah, stress, massive effect on your physique. So you need to manage that stress. If someone's getting ready for the contest in a day, you can practice things like self-talk, mental imagery, use cue words, all those sort of things can make a difference.
Yeah, because Steff, actually, you said before, the night before a show, Andrew does that sort of almost guided meditation with you.
Like guided visualization, guided meditation. He did that with me on the last one. Because I was really, really nervous. Not so much about my physique because I hadn't been on stage in a while. I was really worried, wasn't I? And I think that was extremely, extremely, extremely helpful for me. I think as well, you know, us being female, and we've touched on this, Sarah, before, but we are, first of all, competing is very visual. You're there to be judged. So there's that stress there of competing anyway, naturally. Sure. And then the other thing is that we're females competing in a male dominant sport. And we have this, and going back to what Andrew was saying about the social stressors that come with that, there's still this taboo kind of feeling like, why are you female wanting to look like that? Why do you want to build muscle like that? Why do you, you know, it's this kind of juxtaposition between being a female and then being in the bodybuilding sphere, and you're constantly battling with that. So there's this stress around that as well. And absolutely, I think cortisol is huge at all different parts in the prep, top to bottom. It's really interesting. I think as you become more experienced, you realize what you can control in terms of stress and what you can. Yeah, that's the kind of important distinction between somebody who's doing it for the first time and then someone who's later down the line competing, and then they realize what their stresses are.
You can be, if you can realize what they are, you can, I guess, put things in place more. Another extension of that is when I've competed internationally, the water retention and the swelling I've got from traveling, which you don't always consider things like that. And the first time it happened, I'm thinking, what the hell is happening to my body? You know, I'm lean, but I'm not lean at the moment. And then it drops out once you're there for a couple of days, and anything like that. Like we've said before, Steff, traveling up to a venue, even if you're driving for like, say, 6 hours to a venue, that can cause levels of stress, inflammation and things like that. And if you're traveling there on the day of the show, it's like, oh God, there's so many things to consider there.
I think you've made some very good points. I say this all the time to the guys and girls. The best thing you can be is prepared, and the worst thing you can be is unprepared. And by that I mean is having your checklist with all the things you need to bring with you on the day, booking hotels in advance, just controlling as many variables as you possibly can so you don't get taking up more headspace with stress up into the event. And then doing as much posing practice as you can, making sure that you've got your tan all perfectly, everything like that. Because when you get on stage, if you do get nervous, then what you can do is you can fall back on all that preparation. And if you've done enough practice, then it can become almost automatic. And then you can regain your composure and stuff like that. If you've not done enough practice and you're not prepared, then you've got nothing to fall back on. And I think a good coach, it's about more than just manipulating carbohydrates and proteins and stuff like that. It's about preparing someone for the day of the competition, what's involved, what's going to happen. This is very often why I say you should do more than one show, because if you want to get good at this, it's not like playing tennis where you can have like a tennis practice session and then you can have a practice game at the end of the week, and if it doesn't go well, you can do another one next week. You get like one chance at this. So you've got to do a few of these to get experience, to get good at the activity of doing all those sort of things and calm your nerves for the reasons that I said earlier on. Because most people, the first time they do it, it's a blur. The rabbits in the headlights, to get stressed, and it's
like, I just want this over almost. It's interesting you said that, Andrew. I was talking to a friend that's going to do a strongman event next year, and he was talking about bits, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough and all this type of stuff that equates to competing anyway, and all these sports you have. And I said, why don't you go and spectate some shows and just feel the vibes? You know, you don't need to compete, but actually, I found when I first started watching shows, it was like, oh, this isn't as maybe bad as I thought it was going to be, and maybe as pressured.
That's a great point.
It's setting yourself up for success, I guess, and just understanding the environment.
Great points. Really, really good. Rugby teams, football teams, when they go to play at a football stadium for the first time, they go and have a walk around, don't they, the day before and stuff like that. It's the same idea, just to prepare them. Just for the environment. No, great. And I would, if anyone wants to do these things like bodybuilding, strongman, like that, go and watch one, and it'll take away so many pressures, because you'll just have an idea how it works beyond just the seeing it on YouTube, because the culture and everything and the vibe on the day is totally different.
And there's such a different vibe from behind the scenes as a competitor to being a spectator. When you're a spectator and there's just like a buzzing atmosphere, people are cheering, people are like having a bit of a laugh, you know, and enjoying the bodybuilding for bodybuilding. It's really different to the stress you feel as a competitor backstage, and it's all about the competing. It's all about the competing. You know, it's very different. So I completely do recommend that as well. Absolutely.
People fuck with you backstage.
More male thing that.
And you fuck with yourself.
I know, exactly.
I think you sort of, if you can spectate some things, you're almost just laying the foundations of, you know, when you first compete, it's not completely unknown. At least you've got a slight idea. And also getting familiar faces and stuff. It's quite nice because it's like you get that little nod of, oh yeah, I recognise you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Andrew, I've got a random question for you. So for the listeners, first timers in particular, I guess, when I first went to my first bodybuilding show, I was looking around thinking, why is everyone laying on the floor with their legs in the air?
Yes, okay.
Could you talk about that?
It's a classic trick, isn't it? I mean, you described the fact that you were driving for 6 hours somewhere and you're holding water and stuff like that. So people will put their legs up in the air just to let gravity do the work to suck all the water out of the legs. And then when they stand up again, then hopefully the water will flush all the way back down to the lower extremities, and then it'll make them sort of stop holding as much water in the upper body. I actually read a paper the other day there on peak week considerations that was suggesting that you might want to consider lying or sleeping at almost a 45-degree angle to influence the blood pressure in the upper body, to try and then again influence the water balance in you. Now, whether or not I can work out if that strategy is worthwhile doing or not.
Can you imagine the night before being like upside down, basically?
Yeah. Well, anyway. So, but that was the idea. They were seeming to suggest that there was some sort of effect on blood pressure, and that might have some sort of extra vascularizing effect on the total body water and the pump you get.
I mean, I suppose this corresponds with the idea of stopping leg training, you know, as well, a few days out, and you're considering lay off the legs, allow the legs to relax and to obviously just not be in any way inflamed, and then the added idea of bringing them up is to continue that process, if you like. And there's loads of like little things, like even you mentioned there, Sarah, about traveling. There's being on a flight protocols, compression socks, drinking a lot of water to manage balance. There's actually protocols you can do if you know you're going to be on a long flight. Andrew and I have done this when we went over to I certainly did this when we went over to the Pro Worlds in Miami. How long was that flight? 10 hours?
Something like that.
12 hours, right?
Then you're going into different time zones.
And you're going into different time zones, you're having to work it all out. And there was a protocol for that. And there's things you can do to help you. And of course, the biggest one being try and get there earlier, a few days earlier, so you can allow for that reacquainting to the zone and everything else. But
it's all very overwhelming though, all these things for a first timer. And I guess that's unless you're someone that really thinks about things and has got a knowledge and understanding about the human body, then it can be a total minefield to cut through what's going to be worthwhile and what's not going to be worthwhile. And I guess that's the advantage of having an experienced coach at the end of the day.
Yeah. So if we can answer a question, it's slight different tangent, but we had a question come in, which would be really cool because Steff and I have been trying to get people to send them in. So it's like, let's talk about it.
Great.
It's from Amanda, who reached out on Instagram. So 3891 Amanda is her Instagram name. So she was saying about reasonable and manageable ways to get back to a maintenance plan while still incorporating treats after a show. So naturally, that's a fairly complex answer that could come our way. Steff and I have spoken about this in our post-show pod, so people can obviously listen back to that. But obviously the effects on hunger, the ghrelin effect and different things that happen as you come out the back of a show, is there certain things that you could just, you know, maybe throw a couple of tips out there or a bit of a summary as to how she could tackle that period?
I mean, again, it's an individual thing from here and everyone's got their own needs. I was just thinking there, Eric Helms and Eric Trexler just recently published a paper on new physique competitor competition guidelines. They put a protocol in place for a stepwise what we should perhaps think about considering for that post-contest period. So there is a framework there, and I wish I could remember the exact paper, but the general consensus in the scientific community that I work in for publishing and research papers in physique competitors is that the idea of the body recompositioning and the reverse dieting is a total folly. It's that adherence to it is really, really low, and that really you should be thinking about trying to get yourself back to something similar to your previous off-season body weight as quickly as you can.
Possible, yeah.
If that off-season body weight was a reasonable one in the first place, maybe you started 5 kilos too heavy from a off-season body weight perspective, in which case you want to be the 5 kilos lighter one than you are just now. So that's the general consensus, to get yourself back to that weight. And if you can get yourself back to that weight, then what will happen is that the psychological effects that you incur from a contest dieting will be significantly reduced. The mood states, depressions, things like that will all be improved radically, but also the hormonal balance will be improved, and that accounts for both the hunger and satiety signals, because they're directly related to your body's glucose stores, but also adipocyte stores, so leptin, for example. In terms of a protocol, I would try and increase the calories back to what the off-season calories were as quick as possible. I would put in probably structured cheats and say, okay, maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 days a week we're going to have a treat this day, a treat this day, a treat this day, and then try and work towards a model of, if the person ever wants to do it again, more at the off-season mode, and if not, then work towards working to a model of more intuitive eating where you're stepping away from weighing things and from there. But it depends on the individual. It really, really does. And hopefully there's useful things you can take away from what I've said there. Does that help? Does it answer the question?
Yeah, it's so, like we've said before, haven't we, Steff? It's so complex and it is person dependent. But I think even if someone can take a couple of bits of nuggets of information.
Yeah, and just on a side note to that, I was having a conversation with a client in the studio a weekend or so ago who's been suffering from kind of post-show, only what I kind of call post-show depression almost, or just post-show kind of anxieties or stress or feeling low in mood. And a couple of things. Now, this person has come away from stage and been slowly increasing calories, maybe not quite at a fast enough rate, I would say, potentially, and has also, though, been going in and smashing 5-6 days a week of training, nailing herself, and we've said this before in the podcast, Sarah, but Andrew and I speak about this all the time. In bodybuilding, it's like one of the only sports where we come away from nearly potentially up to a 40 week, if you're somebody like us, prep, you come off, you go straight back into the gym and start absolutely nailing your body again. And
no sport does that.
No sport does that.
They have off season, like football's always the example of rugby. They do the season, they finish the season, they go on holiday for 3-4 weeks, then they come back. And
then they begin that reverse into their all-season training.
That's what they do.
And we talk about this, and Andrew and I take an approach like this. We came off the back of our 2019 prep and we had, nearly a month.
Oh yeah,
a month of training off.
Training.
We stopped training, we did yoga, we stretched, we chilled, we tried to replenish our bodies, we tried to replenish our mind and giving your body the rest and recovery it needs. You've just put it through something traumatic in a way, really, really great. A traumatic experience. You've been in a controlled state of starvation. Your body's at leanest it's ever been. Doesn't want to be there. Yeah. And then you're going to go in and start trying to hit your PBs a week later.
Yeah, it's silly.
Very, very dangerous territory. And I think if you don't give the body enough time to rest, but if you also don't give your mind time to rest after a show, I feel like there can be some just patterns of kind of things that you might experience and come up with. There's a lot involved in that, and it's individual. But you may start to experience, difficulties mentally as well with that process.
I would say people that more likely take that approach don't have the longevity in the sport that other people do, because they just get burned out.
Well, that's what you said. It's burnout. It's burnout. That's what that feeling is where you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I've just done this goal. Everything's been into it. And now I've stopped and now I'm smashing myself. But it's there's a lot of stuff there.
I think as well, trying to realise what treats are to you as well. With that question, it's like, how can I incorporate treats? To some people, a treat might be a couple of Quality Street chocolates. Some people, it might be a 6-pack of donuts. And
for some people, it might be a spa day.
Yeah. And
self-care, recover.
So
take care of yourself, nourish yourself post-show, nourish yourself and look after yourself, because you've gone through this process. But not many people talk about that. They talk about what's next. What's the training going to look like? What's the off-season plan? It talks about what you're going to do to take care of your body and your mind after what you just put it through.
Yeah, you need to recuperate and then restore yourself and then go again, rather than starting from a position which is like 70% capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, your example of your women that you gave there, I mean, that's a classic, someone that's been in the tunnel vision going for it, that's suffering all these psychological effects that I described earlier on. And as I said, as you get yourself, your body weight back up to the previous level and your body fat levels back up to what it was previously, then many of these things disappear. The mood states. I mean, for a woman, you should be restoration of the reproductive cycle. Once that comes back, you know that you're probably working, if indeed you lose it, working again at something at a healthy capacity. And sometimes you need to overshoot what you were before in terms of the body fat levels to get that.
And that time that what Andrew's just describing there, that could be a short period of time for some girls and a long period of time for others.
Yeah.
How long did it take me on the back of my last prep to get back to that kind of?
Just for context, and this is again documented in the literature, I would say for yourself, probably about 4 or 5 months.
About 5 months, yeah.
And again, that's not unusual, because I've seen it again documented in the literature of 7 months post-show. And that's taken for someone's menstrual cycle to return. So yeah, that's when you're healthy again, and you should probably start smashing it, and your hormonal profiles are back to where they need to be. In terms of the other thing though, the post-show blues, again, restoration, but you've got to realize that when you're pursuing a goal and you put the flag on top of the mountain and you say, I'm going towards that, that's a massive drive and motivator. Your brain releases a huge amount of dopamine to motivate you towards that. And it's that dopamine which allows you to overcome all the adversity. And then if you introduce a goal which is a bit indifferent, am I going to do well or not? I need to do really well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to do well. So you've really got to struggle and fight it. The dopamine response is even larger. So you get an even bigger spike and more inspiration. If post-show you're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing next, and it's a bit wishy-washy, that dopamine response you're going to get, it's just not going to compare, is it? It's not going to be
so important, isn't it, to go off the back of a prep, and when you're ready, or even if you can before you compete, start to think about what's next, what's your plan going to be. And I always, in a off season, at the height of the off season, I start putting goals in the gym, like I want to lift X amount on a squat or X amount, and then I get so into that, I'm like, I don't know if I want to prep again. I quite like being like a strong person. And it's like, it's just setting goals all the time and being realistic with what you want to achieve and managing your expectations.
Having the long-term rather than the short-term approach of wanting to be in the sport for a while is a helpful standpoint on it, and recognizing yourself as an actual athlete. And a lot of people talk about, they say I'm an athlete.
Yeah,
maybe +% of people don't know what that actually means.
Yeah.
They really don't. And I mean that when I say that many people don't understand what it means.
Yeah. And it's not being, you're not being arrogant about it. It's a case of, Steff and I have spoken about almost earning the right to call yourself an athlete, in regards to, it's not just, I want to do this once and then I don't really care what happens after. The athlete mentality is a bit more, I want to compete. I've got an expectation of what I want to do. Is it realistic? What am I going to do after the show? What comes after that show? And there's a long-term plan to it. It's not just saying, oh, you're not an athlete if you don't compete several times. It's the mentality, isn't it?
The mindset is a major difference. You're task-orientated and you're goal-orientated at the same time.
You're prepared to do the work.
Prepared to do the work. And you're also, you're aware of long-term planning and how things you do in the short term might affect the goals longer term as well. All those things are important, and you're prepared to embrace different strategies and ideas and learn as well.
Yeah. And the grind. Embrace
the grind. Yeah. And then knowing that, I put posts up about this, like it was only yesterday, like working through pain and working through struggle. Part of that is in the prep. You're going to struggle. And you've got to be ready to face that head on and push right through it.
And get to that flag. Andrew, maybe if you can have a look and see if you can find the name of that study or that paper that you mentioned, and we can put it in the description.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I literally was looking at it yesterday, so I could find it quite easily. I can't give you the exact title, but I think it's...
No, that would be cool.
The lead authors, the main authors on it are Eric Trexler and Eric Helms. They're two on Peter Fishins on it as well.
They're good lads, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're on it, and then there's, I think the first author's Barker. I've forgotten his name.
Cool. So if we put that in the description, and are you guys still looking at taking on clients at the moment? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we always are looking to speak to people who want to get the whole experience fully and come on board. What we know is a very, I think we take a very person-centered approach to coaching, and we make sure we get the results. So 100%, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, if someone's serious about their goal and they're coachable and they gel with them, then absolutely. I love helping people, and I love helping them towards their goals. It's a very rewarding thing. So yeah, why not?
Awesome. So if people want to reach out, is it Instagram and the website, or is one better than the other?
Well, you can get us in all different places, but the website's probably the best, proprepcoaching.com. But if everyone's on Instagram, aren't they? So rather than go to the website, so just ping us a message on the gram, or ping Steff a message, or me a message.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is, if anybody does actually want to give us a little bit of information about themselves, go on the homepage. There's a big button that says sign up here for information or something like that. It's a big button. Jump on there, give us some info about you, and then we'll contact you about having a call and seeing how we can help.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So thank you for your time, Andrew. It's been awesome. I mean, we could probably do a 6-hour podcast and more.
Probably.
Potentially. I mean, there's so much that I didn't talk about or get into, but yeah, hopefully there was a nice flavour of some various different bits and pieces on there that you all find useful.
Yeah, and it's an umbrella, isn't it? But also having some specific stuff as well. So thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out to Steff and I, as normal, sarahparkerhatchard and
Steff Noble Figure Pro.
Cool. And we will see you next time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you soon, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.